Adrien hurried away from the banquet. And that was when I learned he was keeping a mistress. She was 19 when she officially became his. 2 years later, she bore him a son and received a set of jewels worth millions. 4 years later, she bore him a daughter and received a promise that they would never part. And just like that, they had a perfect family, a son and a daughter. And I, all this time, was kept completely in the dark. The day we finally tore away the facade, I stood at the door of the room where they were meeting, interrupting Adrienne's sweet nothings. "What's the next step? Are you going to bring her into our home?" "Yes," he replied calmly, handing me a divorce agreement. "Sign it. I need to give her a proper title. Every pair of lovers wants their happy ending. But why on earth should I let them have it?" The email from the paparazzo, with a video of Adrien picking up his illegitimate son from school, arrived just after I had tucked our daughter, Arya, into bed. Besides the photos, the email contained only one sentence. "Mrs. Thorne, what I want isn't much. Just 3 million. You can certainly afford it." I couldn't help but laugh. Paying to clean up my husband's messes to save my marriage is not something I would ever do. There's no need to hide a marriage that has already rotted away. I didn't reply to him all night. He must have gotten anxious, because another email arrived. "MS. Sterling, I know your company is currently bidding on a government contract. If your marriage runs into trouble, the situation probably won't be good for you. Right. You can try me." I replied coolly. I wasn't afraid of angering the paparazzo. On the contrary, this was exactly the result I wanted. Since Adrien had done such a thing, he deserved to be exposed, to be nailed to the pillar of shame forever. No one was worth my compromise. If it's not good enough, throw it away. Arya had woken up at some point and was watching me with wide eyes. "Mommy, are you not sleeping yet?" I stroked her head. "Did I wake you?" "I'm sorry, sweetheart." Arya shook her head. "I couldn't sleep." "Mom, I'm 10. I know what's going on outside. You don't have to hide it from me," Arya said suddenly, looking right at me. "I know you know." I faltered for a moment, then pulled her into a tight hug. I've always known. A wave of heartache washed over me, and I was filled with guilt. In truth, I knew Arya was aware of Adrienne's affair ever since her teacher called me. She said Arya had been distracted lately and asked if I wanted to request a leave of absence for her. I had considered it, but I never knew how to bring it up with her. I can handle anything that comes my way. I have the confidence to manage it all. But I never wanted my daughter to experience her father's infidelity at such a young age. It was too cruel to her. I couldn't bear it. "Mom, I'm your child," Arya said, taking my hand. "The proudest thing in my life is being your daughter. I can accept anything, but I don't want to leave you." I held Arya in my arms and said nothing more. I knew what she meant. She was choosing me over Adrien. She was telling me, in her own way, that if we divorced, she would choose me. "Mommy, I love you forever." Arya fell asleep in my arms. I gently moved her back into her bed. As I was about to turn off the light and leave, I received a text message. "Aren't you going to divorce him yet? You're not actually waiting to be thrown out, are you? You old hag." I put down my phone, finding it laughable. It was from Adrienne's mistress, Chloe. I had never met her, nor did I know anything about her. But from this, it was clear she was an absolute fool. Discovering Adrienne's illegitimate child had been an accident. Last month, I had a business trip abroad and left Arya with my parents. The deal was supposed to be complex, requiring at least a month in France. But things took a sudden turn, and I managed to finalize the partnership in just a week. Boarding a flight back home, it all happened so unexpectedly. When I walked into the Thorne family's old estate, I saw a child in the garden. He was running around a sweet, scented osmanthus tree. I was startled, assuming we had guests and this was their child. A moment later, the boy suddenly fell. Before I could step forward to help, he burst into tears, wailing for his grandma. Adrienne's mother and our housekeeper rushed out from the living room. The housekeeper helped the boy up, and Adrienne's mother swept him into her arms. "Oh, my dear grandson, how did you fall?" The child cried, "Grandma," and struggled to get down. After his grandmother put him down, he kicked the osmanthus tree. Furious, "Grandma, cut down the tree. Cut it down now." Then he threw himself on the ground and began to roll around. "This tree should die. I'm going to kill it." I stood there for a long time, stunned by his repeated cries of, "Grandma." The child seemed off. He suddenly started screaming and even kicked my mother-in-law. I was frozen to the spot, unable to move. Adrienne's mother frowned and tried to soothe the child. Gradually, her own temper flared. "Can you just stop screaming? What is it that you want?" Suddenly, she looked up and her eyes met mine. Standing behind the flower bushes, Adrienne's mother froze, her mouth opening and closing. But no words came out. Adrien returned quickly, as he carried the child into the living room. I stood to the side, waiting for his explanation. The moment he saw me, he immediately put the child down. "I can explain, Eleanor." When those words left his mouth, I knew it was all true. He really did have an illegitimate child. In that instant, our entire past, all our memories, became a joke. The child began to cry without warning, clinging to Adrien, demanding to be held. Adrien just stared at me, his mouth slightly agape. Receiving no response, the child started screaming, running around the living room. With a sweep of his arm, he knocked a fruit platter off the coffee table, then began banging his head against the wall. It was clear he wasn't a healthy child. "No need to explain. Draft a divorce agreement and send it to me tonight," I said, looking at Adrien. "Eleanor." Adrien glanced at the child, then back at me. He looked annoyed. "Just like that? You're asking for a divorce? Are you serious? You won't even listen to a single word of explanation. What do you want to explain?" As I questioned him, the child let out another shriek. His screams grew louder. I fought back the bitterness in my throat. "Adrien, what face do you have to explain anything to me?" Adrien picked up the child and fell silent. No amount of words could change the facts now. I quickly packed a few things and left the Thorne estate. For the past month, I had been consulting with the best lawyers about the divorce. Adrien's shamelessness was obvious. The priority was to fight for my rights, the child and the business. I wanted both. I wouldn't leave a single thing for Adrien. After I finished getting ready, my private investigator sent me the address of Chloe's residence. MS. Sterling. Mr. Thorne has kept the woman well hidden. I had him followed for some time before confirming he's keeping her in a villa at Riverside Gardens. I've sent you the specific location. There are likely other locations. I'll continue to investigate. I transferred $200,000 to him with a simple message. "Thank you." Originally, it didn't have to come to this with Adrien. We could have talked, parted amicably, and divorced peacefully. But he refused to communicate. He wanted custody of our daughter, claiming he would never let a Thorne child be raised outside the family. And I would never let him have his way. Even if my daughter wasn't born into the Thorne family, she would have everything with me. She didn't need Adrien as a father. To her, he was a stain. I drove to Chloe's residence. I recognized Adrien's car parked in the driveway immediately. It was his favorite car. There was no mistake. Adrien's assistant was standing outside the living room. He had been rubbing his hands and stomping his feet to keep warm. The moment he saw me, he froze. "It certainly is cold." I smiled at him. "I never imagined, Mr. Evans, that your job description included chauffeuring your boss to see his mistress." Mr. Evans stammered. "MS. Sterling. I. He finally lowered his head. I had no intention of making things difficult for a working man. I handed him a business card. "You have two choices. First, you can call Adrien right now. I imagine he's instructed you to provide him with cover. But if you do, I will still see him. Even if you warn him, he'll likely take his anger out on you. The second option is much better. By comparison." I chuckled. "Forget that Adrien is your boss. Let me in quietly, without alerting anyone. After today, you resign and come to my company. I'll pay you double." A flicker of movement in Mr. Evans's eyes told me he had unhesitatingly chosen the second option. As I expected. After all, the Sterling Group was far more successful than the Thorne Company. There was no reason to turn down a better future. I stepped inside and paused for a moment. The decor was very similar to the Thorne estate. Even the furniture was the same. Adrien had a mild case of obsessive-compulsive disorder. He liked things to be identical. When he was a child, all his stationery had to be the same model. If he lost something, he'd buy the exact same one to replace it. I went upstairs quietly. The decor there was also a carbon copy of the old house. It seemed Adrien had put serious effort into creating this simulated home. I went to the room at the end of the hall. Adrien's bedroom at home was in this position. It was likely the same here. The door was ajar. Voices drifted out from inside. Adrien, when are you going to marry me? I don't want to be the woman behind you anymore. Please marry me. Okay. You can't let our children be illegitimate forever. Can you? It was a cloyingly sweet voice. So gentle it was sickening. Just a little longer. Don't be difficult. Adrien cooed, placating his mistress. I need to get custody of my daughter before we can divorce. The woman sounded displeased. We have a son and a daughter. Why do you have to have that child? Arya grew up with me and my mother. There are feelings involved. It's not so easy to let go. Don't cause trouble. Chloe. Adrien spent a long time coaxing Chloe before she finally smiled again. Daddy. A little girl, looking to be under 2, ran in from another hallway. A sharp-looking middle-aged woman followed her closely, afraid she might fall. Upon seeing me, the woman clamped a hand over her mouth, nearly crying out. Adrien must have heard his daughter call for him, because he walked out with a smile. However, the first person he saw was me. Adrien was stunned. Chloe, standing beside him, spoke with schadenfreude. Adrien, you drove so fast. You didn't even notice you were being followed. I raised my hand to slap her. Unfortunately, Adrien was faster and blocked my arm. Eleanor, he said, displeased. You're 34. She's only 25. It's normal for her not to know how to speak properly. Why are you stooping to her level? I stood there, calmer than I had imagined. When love is gone, people say cruel things. I just never thought he would use age as a weapon. I raised my hand, and the slap that hadn't landed, I delivered to Adrien's face. I put all my strength into it, holding nothing back. Adrien looked up, his eyes wide with shock, a red mark instantly appearing on his cheek. Chloe screamed and covered her mouth. I learned self-defense from a young age. That slap would not feel good. From childhood, my parents told me that I would be the sole heir to the Sterling Group, that I needed excellent physical fitness and knowledge, the essential qualities of a successful person. I did as they asked. I was the captain of sports teams, proficient in various ball sports, fluent in multiple languages, and excelled in all my subjects. I worked so hard, constantly enriching myself, to satisfy myself. I had to be the best at everything, to expand the company. I had to fulfill my social responsibilities, to become the most outstanding and influential entrepreneur. I also wanted my employees to be the happiest and most fulfilled. I pursued perfection in everything, holding myself to the strictest standards. Not so Adrien could stand here and mock me about my age. Eleanor Sterling. Adrien stared at me, his eyes filled with undisguised fury. Are you insane? Chloe chimed in from the side. How could you hit Adrien? Before she could finish her sentence, I slapped her too. Her skin was delicate. Her left cheek swelled up instantly. I can't stand asymmetry, so I gave her another one. Adrien's illegitimate daughter was bold, seeing her parents being hit. She must have found it amusing, because she started giggling. Adrien glanced at her, displeased. The few of us stood there in a stalemate. Adrien suddenly let out a cold laugh. Eleanor Sterling, you're a lunatic. He looked me up and down. Take a good look in the mirror. See what a madwoman you've become. Are you so young? Adrien. I almost laughed. Why don't you take a look in the mirror yourself? He was 6 years my senior. 40 this year. Time seemed to have been especially kind to him, leaving few traces on his face. But that was no excuse for him to bring up age. Adrien, if you'd made a little mistake when you were younger, you could have been her father. Chloe's face turned ugly. I glanced at her and said nothing more. Speaking to someone like her was a complete waste of time. I turned to leave, but Adrien grabbed me before I reached my car. Adrien, I am not your employee. Is this how you treat me? I ignored him. Adrien snatched my bag. Eleanor Sterling, why did things between us turn out like this? It's your attitude. You're always so high and mighty. Always like this. If it weren't for you always bossing me around, we would never have reached this point. Adrien looked at me, his eyes red. Are we short on money at home? Why do you have to be one step ahead of me in everything? Do you know what people say about me? Adrien was practically screaming now. They say I'm a freeloader. They say that without your guidance, I would have never gotten this far. What man could accept that? I looked at Adrien calmly, my heart feeling as if it had been torn into a million pieces. Just a month ago, he had carefully prepared a birthday gift for me, held me affectionately, and thanked me for helping him win the government bid. And it wasn't just that. As he said, I had helped him countless times. He had gone from happily enjoying the fruits of my labor to resenting it. I looked at Adrien. You're terrifying. I don't know when he became like this, enjoying what I brought him on one hand, while despising the fact that it came from me on the other. Or perhaps, what he despised was never the success itself, but that everyone knew he had achieved it because of me. Wanting to have his cake and eat it too was simply despicable. I snatched my bag back and kicked out, sending Adrien stumbling. What did I say the year we got married? I said, if one day you stop loving me, don't betray me, just tell me, and we'll divorce amicably. Did you do that? The more I spoke, the more ridiculous it all seemed. If you're so afraid of people thinking you're incompetent, why didn't you make your own decisions? Why did you come to me time and time again, begging me to help you find a solution? He was the one who called me a know-it-all. But he was also the one who shamelessly came to me over and over again, claiming he was in trouble and asking me to help him. Adrien, how can a person be so shameless? I don't think this is some awakening of self-awareness. It's an inferiority complex. Chloe ran out from inside, glanced at the disheveled Adrien, and stood in front of him. You dare touch him again? You really think Adrien won't fight back, will he? I didn't hide my contempt. If he was going to, he would have done it already. I don't think it's that he doesn't want to fight back. It's that he's been so drained by wine and women. He couldn't even if he tried. I drove away, not wanting to deal with those two for another second. In the car, I thought about a lot of things. To say I had no regrets would be a lie. Adrien and I weren't exactly childhood sweethearts, but we had known each other since we were young. The circle was only so big. Even if our families weren't close, we had at least met. Adrien returned to the country at 26 and took over his family's company. His parents had groomed him as the heir since he was a child, so he was destined for this path. As everyone expected, he was decisive and resolute, successfully commanding respect from everyone. But that was only temporary. Without his parents constantly watching over things, the company soon ran into trouble. Adrien fired an employee whose mistake had cost the company millions, only to have the man turn around and slander him. The man was a minor influencer and posted a story on his account about being fired for being distracted at work because he was worried about his child. With that video pleading his case, he gained 200,000 followers in a short time. He cleverly used subtle rhetoric, never mentioning the losses he caused the company, only complaining that the company lacked humanity for firing an employee for being distracted. Adrien's company failed to manage the public opinion in time, allowing the truth to be buried again and again. By the time he sent people to handle it, the situation had blown up. Adrien, the acting CEO, was being warned against everywhere, bringing terrible publicity to the company. Even a normal clarification was smeared as Adrien using his power to bully the employee into an apology. Just as Adrien was being thrown into the eye of the storm, I attended a morning meeting at his company. My father held some shares in the Thorn company, but he rarely attended meetings, simply collecting dividends. From a young age, he had always had me by his side, guiding me, exposing me to the world of business. When I turned 18, he gifted me shares in many of his companies, including the Thorn Corporation. After the regular meeting ended, only Adrien and I were left. He knew who I was and greeted me first. Miss Sterling, what brings you here? When did you get back? I smiled, stood up, and shook his hand. It's been a while. You don't seem to be in the best state today, Mr. Thorn. Adrien gave a wry smile and admitted it. I smiled along with him, thinking he had a remarkably good temperament. Back then, he was exceptionally young, filled with a desire to conquer the world. But because he was so young, he couldn't shake off a certain scholarly air. When I brought up the male employee, Adrien's face showed resistance. Since when has Miss Sterling been so interested in our company's affairs? Because I'm a shareholder. Naturally, I want the Thorn company to do well. After all, it affects my year-end dividends, doesn't it? Adrien smiled again and asked my age. 20. Doesn't that mean you haven't graduated yet? Why are you back? Taking a gap year. I've graduated. I answered calmly. I started at 16. So of course I'm graduated now. Adrien was surprised and asked about my university. Cornell, our shared alma mater. Hearing we were alumni, Adrien became less distant and started chatting about fun things from our school days. Why did you choose Cornell? Adrien asked me. It's where my parents fell in love. I thought it was meaningful. So I went. I thought for a moment and added. It was my only choice. So I put all my eggs in one basket. My parents' only requirement was an Ivy League school. They didn't care much about global influence or rankings. So I chose Cornell. I could have applied to better schools. Of course. But I didn't see the need. Adrien then answered his own question, telling me he chose the school because of its culture. When we discussed his company, Adrien grew more and more excited, asking if I was free to have a meal with him to continue our conversation. I declined his suggestion of a high-end Western restaurant and proposed we eat in their company cafeteria instead. A company's cafeteria represents its employee benefits and corporate culture, so I was happy to check it out. I was young then, my thinking inevitably unconventional. My parents had told me to learn from others in our circle, so I came to the Thorn company to identify its weaknesses. In my own company, I was bound to have a biased view and think everything was fine, making it harder to spot problems. It was better to look outward. Besides, Adrien was no fool. I couldn't ignore his abilities just because of one PR crisis. I was happy to learn something from him. The meal was, on the whole, satisfactory. Adrien very politely asked for my advice on how to handle the PR crisis. He first outlined his own ideas. He had two plans. One was to let it cool down, believing that the truth would speak for itself. If the public refused to believe the company's clarification, then they would just ignore it and wait for the hype to die down. The second method was to rehire the employee and ask him to stop slandering the company. After he finished, I was stunned for a long time, almost doubting if he had actually graduated from the same school as me. I don't think either method is very good, I said in the most diplomatic tone possible. Isn't the first one too passive? A company's reputation is its most important asset. It affects stock prices and public perception. You've already missed the best window for clarification. Are you going to keep dragging it out? Letting the public opinion simply fade is the most passive choice. Besides, that approach usually only works for less famous entities, as long as they aren't exposed to the public eye a second time. But, Mr. Thorn, I softened my tone. A company needs exposure. It's like advertising for a product. A business cannot be afraid of the camera. If this employee dismissal issue is just left to pass, won't it plant a landmine for the Thorn company? If you face malicious slander from a competitor in the future, these old scandals will be even harder to deal with. Adrien quickly dismissed his first option. I then began to analyze his second. A person makes a huge mistake, but ends up benefiting from it. Mr. Thorn, what do you think other employees will feel? Will they feel it's unfair? Or will they be tempted to do the same? That employee used malicious slander to gain public sympathy, shirking his responsibility and challenging the company. If this behavior is imitated, the company will face even more negative press. Moreover, the company is already seen as the guilty party. If you rehire him now, you'll be confirming the public's suspicions. They'll think, if the company did nothing wrong, why are they backing down? Adrien agreed with my analysis, nodding repeatedly. At his request, I shared my solution. Investigate the matter thoroughly and turn the narrative around. In the beginning, some people will stubbornly stick to their opinions, refusing to believe any clarification, thinking it's all a game played by the rich. With these people, even if you present them with evidence, they'll still deny it with their eyes wide open. So, if you're going to clarify, do it completely. We call the police, release all the facts and evidence publicly, and expose the full extent of the damage that person caused the company. Additionally, we need to tackle this from the man's side as well. I paused. A few days ago, I noticed some revelations in the comments section of his video, but they've all been deleted now. I felt those claims were highly credible, so I had someone investigate. It turns out, they were right. That employee isn't the single father he claims to be, raising a child all on his own. He's been distorting the facts from top to bottom. He is divorced, but it was because he had an affair. Furthermore, he refuses to pay child support, preferring to gamble the money away rather than give it to his ex-wife. Now tell me, for a man like that, who would believe he was distracted because he was worried about his child? Adrien was incredibly excited after hearing this and immediately stood up to thank me. I didn't think it was a big deal. In fact, I thought he was overreacting. It was a small matter, really, and didn't take much effort on my part. The reason I came was not because I was a know-it-all. It was purely because I love resolving PR crises. It's a way for me to gain experience. If I didn't have such a large family business to inherit, I might have even wanted to work in the PR department of an entertainment company. Then I would have endless crises to solve. Adrien wanted his secretary to visit the employee's ex-wife and daughter to secure their testimony. I gave him a number directly. Mr. Thorne, just call this number. I've already explained the situation to them, and they are more than willing to testify. Once again, Adrien looked at me with new respect. A few days later, Adrien invited me to dinner for the second time, and we discussed more measures to reform the company. That was to implement corporate policies that were genuinely humane. Increase the number of paid maternity leave days for female employees. Increase paternity leave for male employees, allowing them to help their spouses with childcare. At the same time, prepare children's gifts on Children's Day every year for employees with kids. This would demonstrate employee care from all angles. Moreover, giving benefits to the children would increase their sense of identification with their parents' company, making them remember the company from a young age. This would not only improve the company's reputation, but also cultivate a base of hidden consumers for the Thorne Group's products. Adrien adopted my suggestions one by one. I also applied them to my own company. When both our corporations became famous for our employee care culture, receiving official reports and recognition, Adrien proposed to me. At 22, I started a relationship with him. At the time, I thought we would be a great couple and business partners for the next 50 years. Looking back now, it's all rather laughable. The year before we even hit the 7-year itch, he had already started cheating. And yet, I didn't notice a thing. I was slow. I was also too blindly optimistic, actually believing that most feelings in the world never change. I'm afraid that on the countless nights Adrien was cheating, he looked at me with contempt and disdain. Later on, he probably thought I would never find out. 7 years. He hid it from me for 7 whole years. Thinking about it now, I don't even know why I got together with him in the first place. In the beginning, I never thought he had much talent for business. He trapped me in the name of love. And I trapped myself. I should have been sharper. As dawn approached, I didn't go home. I went straight to the office. On the way, I sent a message to the nanny looking after Arya, reminding her to make lotus seed soup for her breakfast. Then, I pondered whether to request a leave of absence for Arya, letting her rest at home for a while. After some thought, I decided to wait until Arya woke up and call to ask for her opinion. Even though she was young, I had always respected her thoughts. Arya loved school and learning new things. Like me as a child, she was competitive and wanted to be the best at everything. But when she became obsessed with Sudoku at age 7, I was actually a little scared. I privately asked everyone in the house if someone was forcing her to study. The answer was always no. Helpless, I had to ask Arya herself, who had been writing Sudoku for 3 hours without even lifting her head. Her answer was that she was interested. She was interested in all skills. She said she wanted to be like me, excellent in all subjects, with a wide range of hobbies, and skipping grades. There was no reason, other than the fact that she was my daughter, and she wanted to be more like me. It's a good thing for a child to be ambitious from a young age, but my heart ached for her. When it was me, I thought it was all normal, but when it came to my child, I worried she was putting too much pressure on herself. After all, from the moment she was born, my only hope for her was to be happy and joyful. But who knew I would give birth to a carbon copy of myself? I observed Arya for a long time, spending every spare moment with her, and slowly, I was able to put my worries to rest. Arya was truly a blessing of a child. She had a great personality, was polite, and had incredibly quick responses. Moreover, she didn't just love to study. She was patient with almost everything, even with games. She learned faster than others. She learned tennis in an hour, was always far ahead of her peers in running, And she even wanted to learn martial arts and outdoor rock climbing. So Adrien and I really did send her. At first, we were worried she would be scared, but later we found she reveled in it. With that, I was completely at ease. Arya lived with my parents for 6 months, and they were reluctant to let her go back to the Thorn estate, saying Arya was a mini version of me, exactly like I was as a child. Adrienne's mother was actually waiting for me downstairs at my company. She burst into tears when she saw me. On what grounds can you just take Arya away? I raised that child. She's a Thorn child. What right do you have to take her? That grandson Adrien brought home last month. What kind of grandson is he? All he does is wail and hit people. He's so much worse than Arya. He's not better than Arya in any way. I want to bring Arya back. I ignored her and started to head to my meeting. Adrienne's mother blocked my path. Eleanor, are you really getting a divorce? As long as you don't. Everything in the Thorn family will belong to Arya in the future. I took a deep breath. Even if we divorce, if Arya wants the Thorn company, I can get it for her in a minute. Acquiring a company has never been a difficult task. From the very beginning, I had anticipated that the Sterling Group would develop much better than the Thorn company. That's why Adrien and I signed a prenuptial agreement from the start, each managing our own finances separately, without intermingling them. In hindsight, this prevented Adrien from taking any of my money now. As for his small assets, while I didn't care for them, I would absolutely fight for what Arya was entitled to. In any case, I wouldn't leave anything for Adrienne's 2 illegitimate children. As for the future, I would just sit back and watch how Adrien would lead his own company to ruin. When the entire capital chain collapsed and he was forced to declare bankruptcy, it would be my turn to make a move. The so-called Thorn Corporation could serve as a practice platform for my daughter. I looked at Adrienne's mother. In the past, she had always hoped Adrien and I would have another child. Even after we repeatedly stated that Arya would be our only child, she never gave up. Later, as Arya grew a little older and was exceptionally easy to care for in every way, she fell completely in love with her. Anything involving Arya, she had to do herself. Arya was affectionate. She liked to stick close to anyone who had taken care of her. This only made her grandmother dote on her more. Whenever Arya wasn't in school, she would take her everywhere. Even for afternoon tea with her old friends, she would bring Arya along, and then take her to an amusement park afterward. She was so afraid that her excessive bragging about how outstanding Arya was would provoke jealousy and gossip that she forcibly broke her habit of showing off. From the second year she started looking after Arya, she completely stopped mentioning that Adrien and I should have a son. Sometimes, when her old friends lamented that Arya was perfect in every way but was unfortunately not a boy, she would retort on the spot, telling them to mind their own business, saying that 100 grandsons couldn't compare to one Arya. Thinking of this, I felt a pang of sadness. All those past moments, I was willing to believe her love for Arya was real, that it came from the heart. After all, it's easy to pretend for a short while, but difficult to pretend for 10 years. But when she weighed the pros and cons, she gave up on Arya. She said 100 grandsons couldn't compare to one Arya. Yes, but when Adrienne's illegitimate son was exposed, she still hesitated. Like her son, the scales in her heart had tipped. I knew she genuinely wanted Arya. After raising her for 10 years, there were feelings, no matter what. But I also had reason to believe that if Adrienne's illegitimate son were as well behaved, smart, and clever as Arya, she would have abandoned Arya. In the end, her fighting for Arya now was the result of a comparison. A love based on weighing pros and cons. A love with reservations. Arya never needed that. However, I wouldn't make any decisions for Arya. Everything would be her own choice. Adrien and I finally went through all the divorce procedures. I hired a moving company to clear out all the important books and documents from my study. Adrien seemed to be in a good mood, looking rather triumphant as he stood at the study door, watching me take the last few replica copies of ancient books. Eleanor Sterling. So, what if you're capable? You still couldn't hold on to your own marriage. His tone was calm, and he feigned magnanimity. But I knew he was green with envy inside. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made a special trip here. He thought he was here to mock me, but in my eyes, he was just putting on a show, trying to save face, to mask his inner emptiness and jealousy. Adrien. I smiled at him. You just wait and see. What goes around, comes around. Violently. He wouldn't be smiling for long. Leaving this marriage wouldn't have a huge impact on me. In fact, it was a good thing. After all, a blessed woman does not enter a cursed house. As for Adrien, without me, I'd like to see how long he can keep smiling. A person's greatest virtue is self-awareness. Unfortunately, he didn't have it. You and Chloe are not even comparable. Adrien sneered repeatedly. She's gentle. She's kind. She's considerate. She knows to make me hangover soup when I'm drunk. She knows to tie my tie for me before I go to a meeting. She washes my underwear for me even when she's pregnant. We are a real couple. As for you, someone as aggressive as you deserves to never find true love. I kicked Adrien in the waist. He stumbled back, looked up, and stared at me with a face full of resentment. Did I say you couldn't fight back? I said nonchalantly. Chloe is so considerate because she depends on you to eat. And what about us? Weren't you the one who always came to me for help? By that logic, shouldn't you be the one doing these considerate things for me? How come I never saw you fulfill your duties? The reason I'm so aggressive, isn't it because I have an incompetent husband? Sigh. I sighed. A wife has to be strong. What can I do when I'm stuck with a husband like this? I'm 5 feet 10 inches and have worked out for years. Adrien is 6 feet 0 inches, and his abs disappeared long ago. At this moment, he was bent at the waist, looking even more dejected, which made me seem like I was looking down on him. No brains, no brawn. No wonder you're so insecure. I remarked sincerely. Someone like you wouldn't even work as a decorative pillow. I clicked my tongue. After all, you're getting on in years. Keep insulting me. It won't hide the fact that you're jealous of Chloe, Adrien said, oblivious, as if he were some great prize. Adrien, I said, word by word. I am a national level track and field athlete, a level 1 swimmer, a level 1 diver, and a level 1 wrestler. I've won all sorts of academic competitions since I was a child, was a model student for many years, and won gold medals in the physics and chemistry Olympiads. Later, I studied abroad, got straight A's for all my coursework, and even earned dual degrees in physics and mathematics. What right do you have to look down on me? In what way do I need to be jealous of Chloe? In what area do I not completely dominate both of you? Someone like you, useless at everything, 40 years old and still running home to his wife whenever there's a problem. What gives you the right to despise me? Let me tell you, Adrien, the more I spoke, the calmer I became. A person like you with zero ambition, but such a fragile ego deserves to be a failure. When we got together, you were the one who asked me. I didn't beg to marry you. Remember, don't look at me with that expression. Don't think you're so great, and I'm the one who's desperate. If I had to choose again, I wouldn't even give someone like you a second glance. Even if you were to marry into my family, I'd still think you're not worthy. You should be grateful for the dozen years we were together. Without me, do you really not know what would become of your company? Without me, who would even call you Mr. Thorne? Take some time to look in the mirror, I said, looking at Adrien's sullen face. All these years, has your brain grown? Has your independence improved? Why do my bids always fail when I don't help? Could you take some time to reflect on your own shortcomings? Why is it that when people mention you, they always call you MS. Sterling's husband instead of Mr. Thorne? Why does no one think I'm the one depending on you? Isn't that enough to make the point? It means you're not good enough. By the end, I couldn't even be bothered to raise my voice. Simply stating the facts. It means you're inadequate in every way. You can't negotiate better than me. You can't compete with me physically. And your mind is so rigid and inflexible. What else do you have to offer? My being with you back then was an honor for you. Do you understand? Adrien's mother completely lost her composure, collapsing on the floor and wailing, her years of elegance and dignity gone. You, how can you speak so viciously? Your words are so ugly. You have no respect for your husband, even if he has nothing to offer. You can't belittle him like that. He's a man. He needs his dignity. Mom, Adrien called out to her, his tone defiant. What part of me has nothing to offer? His mother ignored him and continued to accuse me of hurting my ex-husband's pride. Her ignoring her own son's words was a tacit admission. It seemed that after all these years, even she, the one who always sided with her son, could see that Adrien depended on me. Yet Adrien himself believed his achievements were all his own doing. How pathetic. I paid no mind to what Adrienne's mother was saying. In her heart, whenever her son was involved, everyone else was an outsider. In that case, I had no reason to give her any face. She probably didn't know how many debate awards I had won growing up. If just scolding her son made her feel bad, I could scold her along with him. I carried the ancient books downstairs. Chloe, dressed in a flamboyant outfit and holding her not so normal son, stood there looking at me smugly, like an MVP collecting her spoils of war. I didn't need to think to know she was waiting here to show off, but I couldn't be bothered to listen to her meaningless words. So I cut her off first. You love showing off so much. Keep trying, and maybe you'll marry into a wealthy family soon. What is this now? A mistress showing up with her illegitimate son. How dishonorable. Wait until you've actually secured your position before you come out to flaunt it. Chloe's voice cracked when she spoke. You're going too far. You're not young anymore. Yet you're still so arrogant. No wonder. Don't cry, I said, unconcerned. You're already plain to begin with. When you cry, the plastic surgery on your face becomes even more obvious. Adrien must have been really desperate, bringing up age every time you open your mouth. I found it amusing. Being 9 years older than you makes me an old woman. What? You don't think you'll live to that age? Or are you planning to just die in 9 years? I walked past her. Sorry. I've always been this arrogant. Since I was a child. In front of someone like you. Why shouldn't I be? Oh. And did you know Adrien was just upstairs praising you for being his submissive little wife? Washing his underwear with a cold face. You must be so happy. He loves you so much he even entrusts you with his underwear. I leaned closer to her. What do you think? Is he with you because he admires you? Or because you know nothing, and he gets to feel superior around you? I walked away quickly, with no intention of ever coming back here again. The next time I heard news of Adrien was 2 years later. I was busy investing in several emerging industries when my best friend called me again and again. Did you know that Adrien and his mistress were taken in for investigation? What happened? I was instantly alert. The fatigue from days of meetings and reading documents vanished. I knew about Adrien's situation. After our divorce, he completely reformed his company's rules and regulations. He canceled all the original benefits, vigorously promoted the 996 work culture, encouraged internal competition, and rewarded employees for staying late, quickly inciting resentment among his staff. At the same time, he appeared on numerous shows, aggressively promoting his philosophy, praising sycophantic employees with no real skills, which made his own reputation plummet and earned him the label of greasy. He also repeatedly and subtly mentioned my name in public, openly challenging me to a competition of company management skills. However, I had always treated him as a clown and never paid him any attention. As bad money drove out good, the talent at Adrien's company dwindled. I was happy to see it happen, and I expanded my own company, hiring the good employees who had been driven away by his foolishness. Later, I heard he even got into a fight with several senior executives over disagreements in philosophy. I couldn't be bothered with him, so I never looked into the details. Now, I hadn't expected Adrien to self-destruct so quickly. What happened? I asked my friend. Adrien's company has been losing ground. Right. It's been suppressed by other companies, so there's basically been no profit this year. His little mistress, Chloe, has been causing a fuss, thinking he's incompetent. At first, Adrien could tolerate it, but later he started attacking her for giving him a difficult son, which made him lose face in front of his friends. Then Adrien went and got himself an even younger new flame. Chloe was furious and fought with him every day. The two of them were at each other's throats. Adrien now refuses to even mention his previous promise to marry Chloe. And as for this Chloe, she's even more extreme. She always believed her precious son was stupid because Adrien didn't send him to a private school. So, at the urging of one of Adrien's competitors, she embezzled public funds. Now, both of them have been taken in for investigation. I felt even more refreshed after hearing that. Adrien certainly didn't disappoint me. He didn't make me wait too long. I dialed the internal line and called my secretary. Hayes, inform everyone that all employee bonuses this month will be tripled. Also, Schedule a meeting for tomorrow morning. Yes. MS. Sterling. The secretary's voice was filled with undisguised joy. May I ask the topic of the meeting? A proposal to acquire my ex-husband's company and leave him utterly bankrupt. The secretary acknowledged. I hung up the phone. As the saying goes, when a man is down, everyone gives him a push. Adrien deserved all of it.